that kind of stuff. So check them out. We also have Recoil TV. They have their own YouTube channel, Recoil TV on YouTube. Of course, our channel is John Martin Talks. Spell it all the way out. All the way out. I'm still in Facebook jail, even though I can still broadcast across Facebook, but I cannot respond to your comments. So I love the comments, but if you want to put a comment up and you want my response to it, then you need to go directly to our YouTube channel and put it up. But Recoil TV is all things Second Amendment too when it comes to actually having videos that show you what the latest and the greatest in Second Amendment guns, ammunition, all that kind of stuff, peer reviews. You can't beat Recoil TV, and they also have a magazine. We're determined, ladies and gentlemen, to stay in the public square, but as you probably already know, many conservative voices, and certainly ours, I told you I'm in Facebook jail, and I don't even know what I did, but we're under attack. So we're working on it here with the help of Recoil TV and Big Daddy Unlimited to make sure you can always see our show. So I want to read you a few things here that'll help you find our show, because I tell you all the time, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those in the fight. And one of the things you're going to have to do is not only patronize sponsors of shows like ours, but you may have to do a little extra effort to find shows like ours on a consistent basis. So the next announcement is to help you with that. Due to the move by big tech to deplatform conservative free speech, which is literally happening on a daily basis, we'll be moving John Martin Talks to a new secure platform so that we can continue to broadcast. Please download the Recoil TV app. You can find it in the same links where I was telling you about earlier. It's in the Google Apple Store and Google Play Store right now. Of course, you never know what may happen on a daily basis there. In addition, you can go directly to johnmartintalks.tv to see all of our shows there. They're archived there. We're not currently live on that, but we are archiving there. We're determined to be your voice of freedom. And so remember, www.johnmartintalks.tv. All right, let's get into this. I'm going to do a Washington Post story here, and it is about all of these executive orders, but principally it is about Joe Biden's assault on the fossil fuel industry and our energy independence that we achieved under Donald Trump. Trump 45, President Trump, got us energy independent just about for the first time in my lifetime, but certainly in the last several decades. And Joe Biden is rapidly doing away with that, much to our peril and costing potentially millions of jobs. So let's get into that. This is a Washington Post story. As Biden vows monumental action on climate change, a fight with the fossil fuel industry has only begun. So the fossil fuel industry is getting back. I put this meme up there because Joe Biden is already lying. He's either lying now or he was lying before when he was candidate Biden, or maybe he's just lying Biden, period. But he definitely is Pinocchio Joe. There is no doubt about that. And I'll prove it to you in just a minute. Joe Biden had long promised to become the climate president. He also said he was, if elected, he was going to be the most progressive president in the history of America. And I took him at his word when he said that. So maybe that's what you wanted, those of you who voted for Joe Biden, but that is dadgum sure what you're getting. Joe Biden had long promised to become the climate president, and on Wednesday he detailed far-ranging plans to shift the U.S. away from fossil fuels, create millions of jobs in renewable energy. Yeah, good luck on that. And conserve vast swaths of public land. Well, let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I got a question for you. Who is actually, and chime in, you can chime in on Facebook. I can't respond to you quite yet. That, by the way, is a picture of a lithium mine in China. But there are lithium mines similar to that right here in the United States, literally all over the world. So this idea that renewable energy, because lithium, keep in mind, is the main thing you need to build solar panels, batteries, that type of thing that will actually hold a charge. One of the things that they never talk about in solar energy is the battery capacity. That is the big issue. Two issues in solar. One is the efficiency of the panels, and two is the storing of the energy, which you need lithium right now to do that. So if you think for a second that solar is totally environmentally friendly, then you just don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how else to say it. But who is opposed to renewable energy? Could you tell me? If you're opposed to renewable energy, tell me who you are and why. I'm not opposed to renewable energy. In fact, I'm 100% in favor of renewable energy. I'm 100% in favor of alternatives to fossil fuels. I really am. But we don't really have legitimate alternatives. What I'm not in favor of is false economies. I don't mind spending research. I don't mind funding like certain universities and things, and even what the petroleum industry is doing on their own in research to try to find alternatives to fossil fuels. I'm not opposed to that. I don't really know anyone who is opposed to that. But what I'm opposed to is what I call false economies. And the solar industry is right at the top of that. And windmill, think about the Cylindrum. Remember that term? Cylindrum was basically a fraud. And we can say fraud when it comes to that, I guess. When it comes to election stuff, I can't say the F word. I got to say mod, something different, because we can't say voter F word. We just can't say that. But when it comes to solar energy, there's been a lot of fraud perpetuated on us. Cylindra is a prime example of that. Under the Obama and Obama-Biden, by the way, administration, they gave like $500 million to Cylindra, and they basically were out of business inside of a year. And believe it or not, they kicked back about $10 million to Obama's reelection campaign. So your taxpayer dollars essentially went to reelecting President Obama. But of course, that's another story. But renewable energy, I don't know anybody, especially conservatives, that are opposed to renewable energy and opposed to any kind of environmental issues. I haven't said this in a while, but certainly if I say it, it bears repeating. But I've been telling you all along that we need to lessen our footprint on this planet, period, across the board. I don't think it's just climate change. In general, we need to be better stewards of the earth. And one of the greatest examples of how poor a steward we actually are was when that flight, I think it was 370, went off the radar screen and crashed. They thought it was down in the Indian Ocean, which I'm not saying it was or wasn't, but one of the problems they had in searching for it is there was so much trash floating down there that they couldn't separate potential wreckage from just plain old garbage. I'm going fishing this weekend, and I'm a fish whisperer. This is my psychic sidekick, by the way, Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. That's another place you can see our show archived on there. Make fishing, as I have here, great again. I'm all about the environment. I love the environment. I used to make my living as a commercial fisherman and was very dependent on the environment. My life at that time was dependent on it, not only my livelihood, but I had to watch the weather and everything else. So I'm not in favor of bigger storms and all of that kind of stuff. Who the heck is? So conservatives that I know of are, much more inclined to be out in the great outdoors. A lot of these people that win, lose, however you want to pick it, mod or no mod, that gave Joe Biden the presidency were urban dwellers that probably never get out into the environment. So I just don't know. Chime in and tell me, are you someone who is anti-renewable energy and anti-environment? Because I just don't know who they are. I can tell you, if you think that renewable energy like solar is totally environmentally friendly, you need to, as they say, you better check yourself, because I'm going to give you a little story about that here in just a few minutes. All right, let's get on to this right here. Mr. Biden said, he said that this is not a time for small measures, maybe small minds, but not small measures. Biden said at the White House, adding that the nation had already wasted precious years as it delayed in dealing with the climate crisis. Precious years. And they are precious indeed, because we're going to bring back an oldie but a goodie. This is a few years ago when Ocasio-Cortez, I can't remember if she'd actually won or was still running. I think this is shortly after she won her first campaign. Check it out.
Millennials and people and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And like, this is the war. This is our World War II. And I think for younger people, we're looking at this and we're like, how are we saying let's take it easy when 3,000 Americans died last year? How are we saying let's take it easy when the nth person has just died from
That's
our
good enough.
cruel and unjust criminal justice system? How are we saying?
The first time I ever watched that, I was thinking that dude, and I don't know anything about that dude that was interviewing there, but I'm thinking he's thinking, hey, if the world is going to come to end, how about, give a brother a chance, man? I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, she ain't hard to look at. She's hard to listen to, but she ain't hard to look at. But think about that. If true, what the Democrats, their famous line from last year, if true, then you could say anything. Well, if it's true that we only got 12 years to live, well, that was about 4 or 5 years ago, basically, right? Because we wasted all of our lives during the Trump administration, right? I mean, that's what they're basically telling you. And so now Joe Biden, who probably won't make it 8 years, let alone 4 years, is going to save our lives, man. Think about it. If we only got, just assuming the 12-year cycle, 4 years of Trump, the world was dying the whole time. Now we have our blessed savior, Joe Biden, coming to it. 47 years he did squadoosh. But now he is the answer to our prayers. Of course, he's got John Kerry. We're going to talk about that dude in a minute, man. Is there anybody who has a more face? I mean, he's got his horse face. He looks like the north end of a southbound mule, as they say. But Joe Biden is going to save us all. I hate to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, do you really think about this? Snowflakes out there. The world has been around for a day or two. If you have any doubt about that, just take one visit to the Grand Canyon and you'll look at it and you will leave there thinking, something's been happening here for a while. I mean, that was my first, I've been there many times. I highly recommend it. The Grand Canyon is unbelievable. But that was my first thought when I saw it as a kid. I was like, wow, this thing's been going on for a while. How many billions or whatever really doesn't matter, but it's been happening for a while. And so we really believe that the human beings have 12 years to turn everything around. Now, I'm not so sure that human beings are going to survive on this planet. I hope we do. We're a part of the ecosystem, by the way. We are here, as far as I know, unless the aliens, and I'm not talking about the illegal aliens, but the ancient aliens just plopped us on here, seeded us, as some of them shows talk about. But we've been here for a while. And so I say all that to say this. If we only got 12 years to turn this thing around and now 8 years under, God help us, Joe Biden as president, then we're screwed. We're already done, man. It's way too late. And I'm not saying don't work on improving our environmental conditions. As I said all the time, I am all about renewable energy. I'm all about lessening our footprint on this planet. But I'm also realistic that if we only got 12 years, it's too late already. But as he detailed his plans, talking about Biden, the gas, oil, and coal industries were already mobilizing on all fronts. From an oil patch in Alaska to state capitals to the halls of Congress. One of the things that I've been predicting to you, I don't think are we headed to a potential civil war and secession and all that? It's possible, certainly possible. I think what is much more likely, and you're already seeing it with this issue, Texas has just sued on the immigration issue, and they're talking about suing, and they've done it during the Obama administration about energy issues. Alaska did it during Obama. So I say that to say what I think you're going to see is economic separation and a bunch of Supreme Court cases ultimately where states try to exercise their rights to be energy independent themselves, to keep their industries alive, to keep their economies open and everything else. I think you saw some of that when Texas had that case that never really got proper due during the presidential election under the Supreme Court, and you wonder why people are a bit upset and suspicious of government. But I think you're going to see more cooperation between states. Of course, Ocasio-Cortez says the southern states need to be liberated and we need to be deprogrammed, all that kind of stuff. I wonder if they're going to put us in the gas chamber. I don't know. But from an oil patch in Alaska to state capitals and the halls of Congress, the industries and their allies are aiming to slow Biden's unprecedented push for climate action and keep profits from fossil fuels flowing. So I don't. Did you see John Kerry? I'm going to play a little snippet. This video I'm going to play is really about 5 minutes long, but I'm only going to play a minute or two of it. John Kerry, man, he's back on the scene. Before I actually play Kerry, the thought popped in my mind after I did these notes on my way in. You know, John Kerry is a big time millionaire, right? I mean, he was already quite wealthy when he married the Heinz heiress, so he's tapped into the Heinz ketchup fortune. He has his own private plane that he flies all over the world. He was conducting negotiations with Iran during the Trump administration, not for us, but against us. I mean, you could say that was traitorous. I'm not saying it is, but you could say that. But John Kerry, this is what I thought. You know, he's one of the richest guys in the country. I wonder if he's taken a salary for his newly created climate czar position. Shouldn't he be donating that back like President Trump? If you had to bet whether Kerry was pocketing the money or donating it, which way would you bet? All right, we're going to play this video. It's kind of cut in the middle of it, but I want you to hear what Kerry is talking about workers in the industry of the fossil fuel industry and what they plan to do. It is just off the chain. Check it out.
And I think that unfortunately workers have been fed a false narrative. No surprise, right? For the last few years, they've been fed the notion that somehow dealing with climate is coming at their expense. No, it's not. What's happening to them is happening because of other market forces already taking place. And what the financiers, the big banks, the asset managers, private investors, venture capital are all discovering is there's a lot of money to be made in the creation of these new jobs in these sectors.
Let's stop
so
it
whether
right
it's
there.
green hydrogen.
Green hydrogen, yeah. And we're going to talk about the economics of it here in just a moment. But first thing gets me, and maybe I'm overreacting to it. I'm sure maybe President Trump referred to people the same way. I don't know. But it gets me how Kerry refers to the workers. The workers. Doesn't that sound like something the Communist Party would say? The workers, referencing to people like that. He's talking about people that are actually working in the industry. And he says in that their jobs were being impacted by forces long before we started this climate thing, which may have some element of truth, but tell that to the XL pipeline people that literally got laid off a couple days ago because of direct action of your president, Joe Biden. I mean, so to say that their jobs aren't being impacted, you directly impacted tens of thousands of jobs on day 1 or 2 of the Biden administration. It's not other market forces that laid off those guys, 11,000 workers, literally on day 1 of Biden's presidency. It was direct action by that administration, Mr. Kerry, and you're supporting it. Now, are other market forces, at work? Possibly. But you talk about the coal industry, for instance. The reason why the coal industry was going down in this country is because Obama and Hillary Clinton were shutting it down. Hillary Clinton literally campaigned on shutting down the coal industry. And President Trump, much to his credit, revived the coal industry. But you know who hasn't shut down one bit on the coal industry and is literally building new coal plants as we speak right now? China. China is building coal plants. They are the #1 carbon emission country on earth by a mile. And then, of course, India is right behind them. China is not a part or a party to the Paris Accords that Joe Biden and John Kerry are just, running over themselves to get us back into. And keep in mind, we already had the lowest emissions pretty much in history under President Trump. More so than what the climate deal in Paris was even holding us to. But China is considered a developing nation under that accord, and so they don't have to answer to anything. India, basically the same thing. And I'm not knocking India. I'm just telling you the facts. I'm not even necessarily knocking China in that sense. I'm just telling you the facts. So you have the #1 and #2, and there is no close third fuel emissions coming from China and India, and they're not even under this. Kerry, in a part of his speech, actually said that even if the United States of America went to zero emissions, which is where they want us to get to in 30 years, we're going to talk about that, but he admitted that if the United States got down to in the 30-year plan, got down to zero emissions, it would have virtually no impact on climate change because 90% of the world's fossil fuel emissions come from countries outside of the United States. So we're going to pay the price while China just keeps right on trucking. And where do you think this oil is going to go from the XL pipeline cancellation? First of all, some of it's going to still come to the United States by truck and by train. Not the most environmentally friendly way, but a lot of it is going to put on ships, which are the most environmentally dangerous. If something happens, a tanker breaks, we're still recovering from the Exxon Valdez, for God's sakes. But most of that oil is going on ships and going to places like China. So basically, Kerry admitted that all of this is going to end up impacting global climate change. Not at all. I mean, it's just crazy, right? In barely a week in office, Biden has moved to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, halt the controversial XL pipeline. I still haven't figured out what the controversy was. Impose new limits on oil and gas production, and mandate climate change as a priority across every federal agency. You know, I got a new slogan for you. Biden lied and jobs died. Biden lied and jobs died. I'm going to play you a video right now from Joe Biden, candidate Joe Biden, who is telling you an absolute lie when he's saying this, knew it was a lie, and is now proven by his actions that he was lying to us all the time. Check it out.
It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. You know, the fact is that every time the word climate change comes up, Donald Trump thinks hoax. Every time it comes up, I think jobs. Let me be clear. No matter how many lies he tells, I am not banning fracking, period.
But
Also
the
increase income.
problem, we can stop it now. The problem is you just signed an executive order banning what? Drum roll, wait for it, what is it, Billy Bob? You just signed an executive order banning fracking. So which one was it? Were you lying then or are you lying now? I know for this, Biden lied and jobs died. And that is exactly what is happening as we speak, man. It's just absolute insanity. And let me get back to this idea of not opposing alternative energy. I'm not opposed to it at all. But why don't they create the jobs first? It's like I heard a guy on a radio show this morning coming in. He said, would you take the door off or your front door off of your house before you had one to replace it with? So would you just take it off and leave it open? Nobody would do that, right? But that's what they're doing by their logic. They're basically killing jobs and say they're going to create jobs. Why not create the jobs and then kill the other jobs? I mean, and this whole concept of that somebody can be like an engineer, because let's just forget just the workers. Let's talk about upper level people. Engineers. If you're an engineer designing pipelines and the fossil fuel industry, it's not like you just, oh, by the way, they specialize like doctors do, right? I'm not saying they're not possible to do, but you don't spend 30 years in the fossil fuel industry on engineering oil wells and just, oh, by the way, sure, man, I can design alternative energy. I can design a nuclear plant, which, by the way, they don't even talk about. They don't even talk about nuclear. And I haven't talked about this in a long time. But, I used to be an electrician. I guess I still am, but I just don't work in the trade anymore. A union electrician. I've worked in all kinds of energy sources. I've worked in oil, gas, coal, and yes, nuclear. But they're not talking about nuclear at all. It's not even a part of it. no serious energy talking about getting off of fossil fuels, you have to look at nuclear. And you know why nuclear costs so much? And I'm not saying it shouldn't be regulated, but I could give you countless stories of the crazy regulations on a nuclear plant. I'll give you an example. Now, it's obvious that maybe you should have stronger constraints on any construction on an actual nuclear facility. But I worked at a place where it had a nuclear plant and it had a coal-fired plant on the same property. And when we were doing stuff like, say, drilling a support to put up maybe to run conduit to carry electrical wire, we had to do the same restrictions in the coal-fired plant as we did the nuclear plant, even though they weren't connected in any way, shape, or form. And I could get real deep into it, but basically it tripled the cost of the coal-fired plant because you had to do the same regulation. It's just stupid, man. There's so many stupid things. On Wednesday, he promised to use, this is Biden, on Wednesday he promised to use the government's purchasing power to fund a federal clean car fleet. Did you hear? And I don't know all the details, so I'm not going to get too deep in it, but apparently Pelosi's husband made a major investment in electrical car components just before this was announced. Did you know that? You know, not insider trading. I'm not accusing him of that. I'm just saying. And it said the federal clean car fleet and the jobs that would come with it. He pledged to help low-income and minority communities that have historically suffered the worst pollution. Ladies and gentlemen, this in general is a big lie. And I'm not saying that minority communities hadn't suffered. I don't have any doubt that refineries have been put in places they wouldn't necessarily be put in other, they're not going to put them in the middle of Beverly Hills. I don't disagree with that. But this idea that this energy policy that they're putting forward is going to help minorities is a big lie and total BS. This is the actual sign, I believe it was out in California, the last time Joe Biden held office in the White House as vice president and under Obama. Now, he'll say I was only vice president, right? Well, the scarier thing is not that you were vice president, that you're actually president. God help us, man. But gas prices are one of the things that impact poor people the most right off the bat. Because not only is it cost more to drive, but it costs more to eat. Think about it. If you're living and nobody talks about this stuff, if you're living in an inner city neighborhood, well, you can't go to Walmart. There isn't a Walmart. You can't go to Publix. You got to go to a little neighborhood grocery store. So how much is it going to cost to produce that tomato if it has to be shipped from Florida? Because there aren't electric semis yet that can pull a load. Has to be brought to you in inner New York City in your small market, and diesel fuel goes up, way up, and the cost of producing the plant itself goes way up. Who's going to be impacted the most? Inner city poor people. And you're going to create more poor people, which is really the plan all along, because that's why they want illegal aliens as well. Because the Democratic Party, by their own admission, says they're the party of the poor. They're also the party of the billionaires that are getting richer all the time. But if true, like they say, if true, and they're the party of the poor, then what do they need? More poor folks. And he insisted, talking about Biden, the nation must set about preparing for the inevitable impacts of climate change. This really irritates me, and I'll show you why in just a second. The inevitable impacts of climate change, even as it tries to stave off the worst future outcomes. He also said the United States will lead the world in the global effort to cut greenhouse gases that are driving climate change. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know what really pisses me off the most about all of this crap? Is they don't believe what they're telling you. Because people, they can tell you one thing. What is the old saying? Don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. About like the mask, and I'm not trying to say don't wear a mask. So algorithm, they give due deference to algorithm. I'm simply saying that Nancy Pelosi doesn't believe in mask because she went maskless out in public to get her hair done. It was more important to get her hair done, and she's 80 years old, which is supposed to be the highest death rate, people over like 80, right? And she still, so they don't believe it. Dianne Feinstein, who's like 90, She walked through the airport in D.C. We showed you pic with no mask whatsoever. They don't believe what they're preaching to you. And remember Chuck Schumer when he goes, first we take Georgia, then we change America. Well, he had to put a mask. He said about change the world. Go watch that video. I've played it many times. He's in the middle of New York with 100 people around him, it looks like, and he's not wearing a mask. And basically, when he gets ready to get in front of the cameras again, he puts the mask on. They don't believe it. And what this has to do with climate change, people put their money where they believe. Look at this picture right here. I want to ask you what that is a picture of. Do you know what that is a picture of? It's not the best picture. That's a $15 million brand new home on the water, right up there on the water. That's the Atlantic Ocean on the other side of that little barrier island there. $15 million. Now, you know who built that home? Yeah, you guessed it. Barack Obama. Obama just in the last year or so built a $15 million home right on the water. Now, do you really believe he thinks he's only got like 8 years left to enjoy that house? Do you really think he thinks that sea levels are going to rise if we don't do something, that they're going to rise 3 or 4 feet in the next couple of years? You really believe that? That he just, maybe so, I don't know. And then look at this next picture. Look at that one. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is on the other side of the United States, on the Pacific Ocean. And that is Google's brand new headquarters in San Francisco. They just spent billions, with a B, billions of dollars expanding and building new headquarters right on the water. Now, if they really believed in climate change, don't you think they would have built it maybe in Omaha, Nebraska, as opposed to, San Francisco? I don't know. I'm just reporting the facts. You decide. I would assume that they believe in science. They always talk about it. So what is the science of building your house, your dream home, right on the water, or your headquarters that's supposed to probably last for a second Reich or a fourth Reich or whatever for Google, right on the water? I'm just asking. Please tell me where I'm wrong. It's confusing, to say the least. Biden's aggressive proposals won broad praise from environmental activists and many fellow Democrats while setting off an intense battle with U.S. fossil fuel industry, which has underpinned the nation's economy for more than a century. So the rise of the United States of America is directly tied to our ability to, however you want to put it, exploit. If you want to put it that way, I would just say use and innovate in the fossil fuel industry. And think about this. No one even talks about this. Fossil fuels go way beyond driving your car down the road or having the lights come on. They're literally in everything. I would bet you that pretty much everything you see right here in front of me, including what I'm wearing and probably even how my hair got cut, is a direct result of fossil fuels, plastics, the energy to, run. Billy Bob has probably got some fossil fuels in him. I mean, it's just this idea that we can just turn it off. And first of all, this 30 years thing is ridiculous, and I'm going to get into that right now. But so it's supplied. One reason why they're for this, because President Trump was all about energy dependence. Well, who would be against America being energy independent? Well, apparently Joe Biden. But why? You ever thought about why? Why would any of these political figures not want us to be energy independent? I'll tell you why. It's called the war machine. The military-industrial complex that President Trump was the first one I remember even talking about it after Dwight Eisenhower warned us about it. That's why they all hate Donald Trump, by the way, up in the Washington establishment, because one thing they all agree on, we got us, war, what is it good for? Absolutely making it rain, baby. Making it rain. One of the things, and I'm going to talk about winners and losers here in just a moment, but our energy dependence or lack thereof is going to cause people to die. I said Biden lied and jobs died. Us not being energy independent is going to cost lives, because it is going to empower the very enemies, people that say that wake up every morning that still have Twitter accounts, by the way, and say death to America. Those people, their oil and gas just got more valuable. And so, do you really think that Iran is developing nuclear so that they can get rid of their gas and oil production? Really? Okay, maybe so. American Clean Power Association CEO Heather Zakal, and it's amazing to me how they always get these one thing that, like I talked about Kerry donating his money, one thing Biden has done, one area where he is creating jobs out the yin yang is government jobs. Oh yeah, they creating positions all around. I mean, it's just unbelievable, man. And they're firing all the Trump people that are in government and hiring all their people. Believe me, he's going to do the same thing. He's not going to make the mistake. That's one thing Donald Trump did make a mistake in not getting rid of all the rats around him. In fact, he hired a few. But American Clean Power Association CEO Heather Zakal, who served as one of Obama's top climate advisors. How many climate advisors do you need? Said no one should be surprised by Biden's approach. I agree with you on that. I'm not surprised. Given the mounting scientific evidence of Earth's continued warming and advances in recent years that have helped make renewable energy cheaper. Well, let me just touch this idea of the planet warming. It is warming. There's no question about it. It's been warming for 300,000 years. If you believe in science, if it wasn't for global warming, we wouldn't be here. If you want to look at science, one of the more fascinating shows I saw a while back on, I think it was Discovery. I don't remember the title of it, but they were talking about Homo sapiens and Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, and they found this spot in South Africa where they believe basically Homo sapiens were making their last stand. And the reason why Homo sapiens, according to these scientists, were able to survive when the other hominids died off is because their ability to adapt. They basically huddled in this area and were eating shellfish and seafood because everything else was frozen. And the Cro-Magnons and the Neanderthal couldn't adapt to that. I'm just telling you, it's a great show. Check it out. Discovery, I'm pretty sure. This is not me just saying it. It's scientists. So if it weren't for global warming, and I'm not downplaying that we're not having some impact on it now, but the planet has been, these glaciers have been receding for thousands of years. Are they receding faster? Quite possibly. I'm not denying that. But this idea that we haven't been warming is ridiculous. Pretty much every year they talk about, this is like the hottest year ever. It was like by half a degree. I'm just saying. But if you go back and look, you could say right now that this is the warmest it's been in the last 10,000 years. And that's true. But it's also true that man's rise to be civilization as we kind of know it now has happened really in the last 10,000 years. And the planet was warming and volcanic activity was going down because geologically speaking, it's the calmest 10,000 years we've had. But they don't want to talk about any of that, man. And this idea of renewable energy is cheaper. Yeah, it's subsidized is why it's cheaper. And if it's so, this is the point I want to make about the economics of this. If it's so good, then why can't it compete in the market? Why do we have to stop fracking in order for solar or windmill to take off? Why? Why do we have to stop the XL pipeline in order for us to develop clean energy? Why can't it compete in the marketplace? As I said, I'm all about research, but I'm not about false economies. And basically, because I think ultimately that means they collapse. They don't work. False economies never work in the long run. Right now, we're being sold false economies on all of this. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just telling you the facts. But this Zakal lady said, if we're going to remove 51 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually and get to zero emissions in 30 years, this is going to require drastic action. Yeah, probably. Let me tell you right now, there is no technology. I'm not saying it can't be invented. There is no technology currently existing that will have us off of fossil fuels in 30 years. It does not exist. Tell me where I'm wrong. It doesn't exist. Nuclear, maybe, but we ain't going there, right? So it doesn't exist. She added that her members of this association are prepared to invest $1 trillion in the coming years to clean energy products. We see nothing but opportunity. Well, amen, man. Here's my thing. Why not just do it? If you're going to invest $1 trillion, then do it. Who's stopping you? But that has nothing to do with the XL pipeline. That has nothing to do with the coal miners in West Virginia. It has nothing to do with the fracking in Pennsylvania or the oil producers in Texas. Just do it. If you can invest $1 trillion and make all this come true, why do you need an executive order? Just do it. You know? And I got to tell you this quick story. Let me check my time. I'm doing okay. I've told this before, but if I needs be telling, I went to a press conference. This was several years ago. And the University of Florida, which I love, duly love, they built this building and it was totally energy independent, it was a pretty good sized building, some kind of laboratory. And on the top, they had all these solar panels, and they said that these solar panels, it was a pretty big investment, but it made that building energy independent. And I'm listening, I'm thinking it's great. So they're doing this press conference and everything. And then they mentioned that it would pay for itself in 50 years. In other words, the savings by not being on the electrical grid, all the stuff they did with solar would pay for itself in 50 years, talking about the solar panel. And that sounds great, right? Everybody, eh. But then they said that the solar panels would last for 30 years. And I'm like, nobody said anything. I'm like, am I the only one hearing this? That it'll pay for itself in 50 years, but it's going to be obsolete and have to be replaced in 30 years. That's pretty much sums up the whole fiasco of alternative energy to me. And that's a true story. Look it up yourself. The White House is establishing an interagency working group headed by Climate Coordinator Gina McCarthy and National Economic Council Director Brian Dees, with the help communities grappling to shift away from coal and fossil fuels. It sounds like something from Field of Dreams, right? Build it and they will come. I'm saying do it. Don't cancel one. Just do it. Build it and let's see if they come, man. It just absolutely crazy. We're going to read this last paragraph and then we're going to call it a day. We're going to make sure that nobody is left behind, McCarthy told reporters Wednesday. This is like one of Biden's energy people. We need to put people to work in their own communities. Man, that sounds good. That's where their home is. That's where their vision is. So we are creatively looking at those opportunities for investment so that we can get people to understand that we're not trying to take away their jobs. So the Democrats would have you believe that they can do away with fossil fuels, not kill the Exxon pipeline, all of a sudden Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. And in the meantime, you can still pay your bills. The workers will be all right. Well, I think our president, former president, Donald Trump, I hate to say it that way, but he is our former president. What is he now? President? He's got a new title, former president. Anyway, Donald Trump something. I think he pretty much summed up and he wasn't talking about energy, but this remarks from Donald Trump sum up what the Democrats are trying to do with energy policy and jobs in the United States. Play it.
The Democrats have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit.
I'm like, that's it. I mean, I missed the Donald already, man. I mean, you could play that pretty much after everything John Kerry and Joe Biden say, man. Ridiculous BS. You heard it there best. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please remember, one place to always see our show is www.johnmartintalks.tv. Remember our sponsors. I talked about them. Check it out in the link. Not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. Remember our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks on YouTube. That's where I can respond to comments. But I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because she certainly needs it and deserves it. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, Have a blessed day.